From brawling in Mexico's roughest bars to his insane knockout record, here's why boxers are scared of Devin Haney. For most boxers, their careers start out in fairly traditional ways. They train in gyms, pray that someone notices them, and work their way up the ladder. But Devin's journey to the ring was a rocky road. I mean, the guy got his start fighting in bars across Tijuana, for crying out loud. Haney chose an unconventional route to pro boxing, and he threw tradition right out the window. He was only 17 years old when he stepped into the boxing world, and it created a unique problem. In the US, you need to be 18 and over to turn pro. And while most fighters would have taken a year off to, maybe relax a little before jumping into the ring, Haney's not most fighters. Determined to start boxing right away, Devin packed his bags and made his way to Mexico. Now, picture this: a 17-year-old kid surrounded by adults in a crowded bar in Tijuana. One of the most hostile fighting environments in the world, dismantling every single opponent that comes his way. It's no secret that Devin's hungrier than everyone else. Every boxer in his division sees it, and they're terrified. The man's out for blood and willing to take on any fighter. Unlike most fighters who like to rest on their laurels after matches, the 24-year-old's constantly on the lookout for the next fool to humiliate. He is always planning his next set of callouts and ready to sign his next big contract. I'd bet money that if someone asked him to fight twice in one night, all he'd ask is, "Where do I sign?" Believe me, Devin's always itching to bounce someone's head off the canvas, and he's been compared to the greats like Sugar Ray Robinson, who was famous for his back-to-back fights. So, I guess there's no rest for the wicked. No wonder Haney makes other boxers shake in their boots, because they never know when they're gonna be next. Devin's hunger for fights even leads him to take fights with huge disadvantages, like the time he agreed to fight George Kambosos. The odds were stacked against him, and the fight took place in Australia, Kambosos' home turf. The fight offered very little money and came with a dreaded rematch clause, meaning that even if Devin won, he'd have to fight George all over again later. On top of that, his head trainer couldn't even make it to the fight because of visa issues. Haney's no stranger to hostile environments, but imagine trying to fight a guy with tens of thousands of his home country's fans booing every single move you make and cheering at every twitch of your opponent's arm. Well, what some would call a nightmare is just an average day in the ring for Haney. He dismantled Kambosos, winning the fight by unanimous decision, and proved why he is one of the biggest badasses to ever play the game. Oh, and about that rematch clause? Both of these boxing titans came together late last year in a clash to decide once and for all who was better. How do you guys think that fight went? Simply put, Haney put on a clinic, extending his record to 29 unbeaten wins, becoming the undisputed champion. Devin dominated George for the entire fight, raining jabs down on him from every angle, setting himself for victory with every move. Kambosos just couldn't seem to keep up. And can you blame him? Through his ability to combine his explosive youth with a jab speed that would stop anyone in their tracks, Haney's fighting style is extremely effective. He's been called an outboxer, someone who wears his opponents down with lightning-fast jabs, unloading 1-2 combinations on them until he finally manages to open them up and delivers devastating damage. He uses his long reach to his advantage, often starting fights by creating spacing with his jabs and dictating the pace of the fight. Now, the boxing aficionados among you must be wondering, shouldn't his jabs be weak against southpaws? And for any other boxer, you might have been right, but this is Devin freaking Haney we're talking about here, so you can bet he's already figured out how to deal with this disadvantage. And adapt he did, learning how to use a higher guard against southpaws, neutralizing their advantage through jab parries, and cutting their options down by a huge margin. All of this goes to show you that the young stallion's a genius, with a boxing IQ that matches his insane degree of athleticism. Would you expect anything but the best from a guy that's been directly inspired by the boxing greats? Remember that bit about his fast jabs? Well, you take a closer look, it's almost like looking at Mayweather back in his prime. His outboxing style is extremely similar to the undefeated champ's own toolkit, with a focus on using his lower hand for defensive positioning to set up upward jabs and devastating counterpunches. It's all about that spacing, baby. Of course, this inspiration isn't exactly surprising, given that the future legend has gotten advice and coaching from Floyd himself. And that's not where the Floyd comparisons end. Even Devin's footwork is reminiscent of Floyd's, with a focus on keeping light on his feet, letting his opponents gas out, and baiting them for the perfect counterpunch, all while his jabs rack up points on the scorecards. This means Devin has all the tricks of the trade, from shoulder rolls to hook punches to electric waist movement to keep himself mobile at all times. It's nearly impossible to get a hit on the guy. This is the kind of strategy that helped Floyd climb to the top of the boxing ranks. And let's just say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Imagine going up against someone who you know has studied under one of the greatest fighters on the planet. Personally, I'd be excusing myself for the bathroom. Devin's ferocity isn't just confined to the ring either. Like every young boxer, he uses social media as a way to intimidate his opponents and get into their heads. Some say that the young pro is a social media fighter, someone who spends more time putting up videos than actually putting the time into training. His critics see him as another Jake Paul, a social media star who constantly makes headlines trying to force his way into the ring through social media callouts. Basically, a lot of people still call him a has-been for his methods, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Haney uses his social media presence as a weapon of pure psychological warfare. And you might be thinking that statement's overly dramatic, but one look at the videos he posts shows otherwise. His Instagram is full of videos from his training and demonstrates how he dismantles his opponents, while relentlessly trash-talking everyone he spars against, and showing that he's not afraid of anyone, regardless of how good they might be. And man, oh man, is he the king of trash talk and callouts. No one will ever forget his iconic callout of Ryan Garcia back in 2020. Haney used his social media platform to relentlessly hound Garcia, demanding that they fight. And he even went so far as to call Garcia a hack who was afraid of him and that he was running away from a real fight. Yeah, Devin called one of the greatest fighters in the world a chicken, right to his digital face. Is it any wonder that no one wants to get on his bad side? If all that wasn't enough to have grown boxers hiding behind lampposts, you only need to look at his insane knockout record to see why people avoid him. At just 24 years old, Devin has a boxing record of 29 wins, no losses, and a whopping 15 knockout wins. Those are insane numbers that show you just how crazy he is in the ring. The guy's knocked out more than half of his opponents. He's a knockout artist at this point with 4 first-round KOs, an indicator of just how good he is at laying people flat on their backs. In a world where most boxing matches are decided via decision, most fighters want to avoid people that can rattle their brains like that. And any fight with Haney comes with the promise of having your skull cracked. Devin's planning on building his reputation even more with his fight against Lomachenko, which is the perfect opportunity to push his win count to 30. He's going into the fight full of confidence, repeatedly telling the world he has no doubt he'll win. This kid might actually be in the running to beat Floyd's unbeaten record, while striking fear into the hearts of every boxer that has the slightest chance of crossing his path. So there you have it, fight fans. From his insane knockout record to brawling in Mexico's roughest bars. That's why boxers are scared of Devin Haney.